welcome to Christ and Culture. My name is Pastor Jeff Short, and today we are a couple days away from the 2019 March for Life. And I should say we're 2 days away past the March for Life. It's already taken place in Washington, D.C., and they had a record crowd out there for the March for Life. And that's something that we can all rejoice in, that after 47 years, I believe it was, that the March for Life continues on strong, and it continues to draw people from all over the country, and so we need to continue to support that. I've attended the march in the years past. I didn't attend this year, but I was watching the commentary from a Christian vlogger who has a popular broadcast on the Daily Wire internet network, Matt Walsh. And a few months ago, he gave a commentary as a response to a recent Supreme Court refusal to hear a case involving a couple of states that wanted to defund Planned Parenthood. And all it takes is 4 justices of the Supreme Court to defund Planned Parenthood. And the Supreme Court couldn't muster 4 Supreme Court justices to even hear the case, to even vote to hear the case. And 3 of the conservative justices voted to hear the case, but yet this Chief Justice and, lo and behold, Brett Kavanaugh voted against hearing the case that was brought before it, with the possibility of these states being allowed to defund Planned Parenthood. So here you have this conservative judge, so-called conservative judge, that pro-lifers like myself and others fought hard for to get nominated. Well, let's back up a bit. We fought hard to get a pro-life president, Donald Trump, into office so that he could then in turn appoint pro-life judges to office on the Supreme Court, so that they could in turn, when the cases came up before the court involving abortion, that they would be able to oppose abortion in any way they could. And so Kavanaugh was supposed to be a judge that opposed abortion. He was vetted by the Heritage Foundation, which is a conservative think tank and research center that had advised President Trump and had made a list, actually, of qualified judges who would stick to the Constitution and we supposed would oppose Roe v. Wade. So we're thinking that Kavanaugh, if he's appointed, which he was, after a long, hard fight, and we won't even get into that because that's water under the bridge, but Kavanaugh is on the bench now. He's supposed to be one of our guys. He was appointed by Trump, just like Neil Gorsuch, who did side with Samuel Alito and Justice Thomas. So one of our Trump appointees voted to review the case before the Supreme Court against Planned Parenthood, defunding it. And one of our guys, our supposed pro-lifer, Brett Kavanaugh, voted against even hearing the case. Now, this raises a lot of questions. It raises the big question is, did we support a judge who is not truly pro-life and who would never, ever overthrow Roe v. Wade and doesn't really care anything about abortion anyway or the pro-life cause? And do we have another case of a conservative president appointing a liberal judge? And liberal, I mean someone who favors abortion rights. That would qualify as one definition of a liberal. Do we have a stealth liberal who conservatives fought for and pushed hard for to get appointed to the bench, only to find out he's actually a liberal and will side with the liberals when given an opportunity? That's a big question, and that's a big concern. And I think we need to raise that concern. And I think we're going to be watching now a video by the commentator Matt Walsh, and he raises a lot of good questions. Now, I am not as pessimistic as Matt Walsh. I don't believe that we necessarily picked the wrong guy. I don't believe that Brett Kavanaugh would necessarily vote to not overturn Roe v. Wade. I don't believe necessarily that he's going to disappoint us, but he certainly has disappointed us in his first opportunity to please us. I'm talking about please us as the pro-life community. We are 2 days past the March for Life in Washington 2019, and I didn't hear a lot of talk about Brett Kavanaugh. I heard some talk about Brett Kavanaugh as being appointed by by Trump, but I didn't hear a lot of praise for that appointment, and I didn't hear a lot of positive commentary about Brett Kavanaugh. Why? Because we just don't know about Brett Kavanaugh. We don't know what he's going to do. Like I said, he may be a stealth liberal that we have empowered now to hold to the status quo that is abortion in our country. So we're hoping that's not the case. We are praying that that's not the case, but we don't know. Now, today we're going to listen to a commentary by Matt Walsh, and he is a very clear-headed, straight-shooting Christian conservative commentator, and he is also disturbed by this recent development on the Supreme Court. We're expecting that we would begin to see whenever the abortion or abortion-related issues would come before the bench, that Brett Kavanaugh would side with the pro-life conservatives on the bench. And so this would have been a great opportunity for Kavanaugh to signal to all of his friends and to all of his proponents and all of his supporters who really fought hard for him. It would have been a great time for him to signal and say, yes, I'm one of you and I'm going to be with you and you can count on me, and let this court case come before the Supreme Court with the opportunity of defunding Planned Parenthood in these couple states. But he didn't do that. He sided with Justice Roberts and the liberals. So this is a disturbing development. Well, let's watch Matt Walsh's commentary, and then I'll come back and say a few more words about this issue. Let's watch.
Well, it's not a surprise. But it's no less outrageous, no less of a bad omen of things to come that Kavanaugh joined the liberal justices on the Supreme Court yesterday to block a case that could have given states the right to defund Planned Parenthood. Kavanaugh, Roberts, and the liberals, but I guess I maybe am repeating myself there, left in place two lower court opinions that said that states violate federal law when they terminate Medicaid contracts with Planned Parenthood affiliates. Now, only 4 justices are needed to grant a hearing on a case, because that's all that was at stake here. Was just let's give them a hearing. Let's look at this case. So Kavanaugh could have been the decisive vote in that case. It's not as though the game was already set because of Roberts, so Kavanaugh just joined him for PR purposes. I heard someone said that on Twitter. They said, well, maybe it was just because Roberts was already doing that and it didn't matter. No, you only need 4. You only need 4 to agree to give a hearing on something. So his vote was decisive, and he sided with the liberals. It is now very hard to see Kavanaugh voting to overturn Roe. It was already, and there were those of us who warned of this back when he was nominated, that it was already far from a slam dunk that he would vote to overturn Roe. But now at this point, it's really hard to see it. It's hard to see him even allowing a case like that to be heard in the first place. Because I think sometimes people forget that in order for there to be a vote on Roe, first you have to have a case challenging Roe that makes its way all the way up to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court justices have to agree to hear it in the first place. We know that the liberal justices would never agree to it. And now I think we've got a pretty good idea of where Roberts and Kavanaugh would fall on that. And this isn't even an abortion rights case. Abortion rights. I put scare quotes around that. This is just a case about the rights of individuals to not have their tax money go to abortion conglomerates. Theoretically, a pro-abortion person, if they cared at all about liberty, and I know that if you care about liberty, you're not going to be pro-abortion, but if there was anyone who's pretends to be more libertarian-minded, but for some reason doesn't understand how that concept, how that principle should extend to the unborn, they should still be in favor of allowing states to defund, because that's what this is all about. This is about, should Planned Parenthood, that business that earns over $1 billion, or that's worth over $1 billion, should it continue to receive funds from the state? So we know where Kavanaugh stands on that. Meanwhile, the new Congress with the Democrat-controlled House will be taking over in January. I think they'll be in session on January 3rd, I believe. And guess what hasn't gotten done? Well, a lot of things haven't gotten done, actually. The wall, for one. There's no wall. Obamacare is still in place. The budget isn't balanced. Fiscal responsibility was not established. But on top of that list, on top of that extensive list of failures, I think at the very top of that list is going to be the fact that Planned Parenthood was never defunded. And it's not enough to say that Planned Parenthood was never defunded. It's actually a lot worse than that. The truth is that Planned Parenthood was actively funded. It wasn't just not defunded, it was funded. The choice was made by this Republican Congress it was made again and again and again to actively fund Planned Parenthood. And that choice was also signed off by the president. So it really seems like Planned Parenthood will never be defunded. This institution that kills 330,000 humans a year will continue to be funded by the government. And do you know why? I think you must know why. Because there is no pro-life party. There isn't even a pro-liberty party. Because you only need to be in favor of liberty. Like I said, you could be lukewarm on life. You could say, take it or leave it, life, I don't know. But if you care about freedom, if you care about economic freedom, let's say, because if you care about freedom in general, then obviously you're going to care about life, because you can't have freedom without life. But let's say you're one of those socially liberal types, but you claim to care about economic freedom. Well, in that case, you would say, or you should say, if you really are if you care about economic freedom, you would say it's obviously tyrannical to force people to fund this company that half of the country detests and loathes and wants nothing to do with. So we don't have a party that cares about any of that. We don't have a party that cares about pro-life. We don't have a party that cares about economic freedom, which is why we gave it control of the entire government, and it couldn't even get this job done. Instead, we get Planned Parenthood funding, and we get a Supreme Court justice who won't even let us hear a case that might defund it. I think we need to understand something else if we don't already understand this. For most Republicans, okay, abortion and Planned Parenthood and all of the issues attached to it, abortion and all that means, it is a great issue for them. Okay, for Republicans. It's not a problem that they want to get rid of. It's not an evil to them. It is an issue. And it's great because it can be used to convince people to vote for them. But if abortion ever goes away, or Planned Parenthood funding ever goes away, then they no longer have that issue anymore. Now, in a sense they do, because they could argue that, well, the other guys want to reinstate these things, so you got to put us in to stop them. But that's never as strong as being able to say, there's this terrible thing happening, we need to get rid of it, and we're the only ones who will do that. So they want this, they have this issue, they want it. It is advantageous to them. They could care less about the content of the issue. They could care less about solving any problem. They could care less about stopping it. Worse than that, they don't want to stop it. They want the issue. And if that much isn't clear to you by now, I don't know what will ever make it clear. There are some exceptions to this rule. This is not true of every Republican necessarily, but it is true of most of them. They don't care about this. And that's why I don't see any changes in the near future. I don't see any way that any of this changes in the near future. And if we can't get, if we can't get Planned Parenthood defunding with a Republican Senate and a Republican House and a Republican president and two recent Republican appointees, supposedly 5 conservative Supreme Court justices, supposedly. If we can't get it done that way, we can't get it done through the judiciary, we can't get it done through Congress, then how's it going to happen? I don't see it happening. At a certain point, we need to figure out, as pro-lifers, how and when and if we are ever going to hold these people accountable. When are we ever going to hold them accountable? Because they never do what they say they're going to do, and then we say, oh, we're going to hold you accountable for this come election time. But then they say, no, you can't hold us accountable, because if you do that, then the other guys might get in there, and they're definitely not going to do what you want them to do. So you might as well roll the dice on us. We're your best chance. Well, I don't even think they're that anymore. The problem with conservatives and pro-lifers especially, but conservatives in general, is that we are crumb eaters. We eat the crumbs that are thrown to us. We're satisfied with whatever little crumbs are thrown to us by the people that we elect and put in power and that we support with our votes. We are satisfied with. So even now, everything that I'm saying right now, I know there are people who are going to say, well, yeah, but we got tax cuts. Yeah, we didn't defund Planned Parenthood. We didn't get rid of Obamacare. We don't have the wall. There's no fiscal responsibility. We still got the massive deficits. But we got tax cuts, right? And we reduced regulations here and there. Okay, great, fantastic. That's awesome. I'm very happy about that. We got tax cuts and reduced regulations. I'm not saying that stuff isn't important, but that's easy. Any Republican will do that. That's nothing. Considering all of the power that Republicans had for 2 years, they controlled the entire government, and this is what we get: a tax cut bill and reduce a few regulations, and people are happy with that? You're satisfied with that? All of the major important, significant things that we put them in there to do, they are not, did not, have not done. Repeal Obamacare, didn't happen. Get the wall done, it's not even beginning to happen. Defund Planned Parenthood, not happening. And get us Supreme Court justices that are actual constitutionalists and actual conservatives. That too. And apparently it's looking like that didn't happen either. So it is a huge failure on all of these fronts, but we're supposed to be happy because of tax cuts. And what boggles my mind is that some conservatives apparently are happy with that. That's nothing. That is nothing. We need to start demanding a lot more and expecting a lot more, and holding people accountable when it doesn't happen.
Well, as you can see, this raises a lot of concerns, and I think Matt Walsh is perfectly justified in jumping to the conclusion. I think in Matt Walsh's mind, because he wants to not be disappointed, I think in Matt Walsh's mind, he believes that Kavanaugh is a traitor conservative. He believes that Kavanaugh will not reverse Roe v. Wade if given a chance. Now that we see how he handles some of these smaller cases that come before him. Now, like I said before, this was a perfect opportunity for Brett Kavanaugh to signal to his friends and to even President Trump and to the senators who went out on the limb and fought hard for him. I mean, after all, think about it. If he is in fact not a pro-life conservative judge, and if he in fact will not overthrow Roe v. Wade when it comes before the bench, or won't do anything to help the pro-life cause and sanctity of human life, if he's not going to do anything, we certainly wouldn't have pushed hard for his appointment to the bench. And I don't think President Trump would have defended him against these character assassination and these charges that were coming from the left. The left felt, just as we felt, that Brett Kavanaugh would be pro-life and would oppose abortion, and so they fought against them. They didn't want him on the bench in any way, shape, or form. And we as conservatives fought for him because we assumed that he was going to vote pro-life. But if he is not going to be voting pro-life, then certainly these senators and these politicians and the base, the conservative base, would not have fought hard for him. We would have just let him go. We would have asked, and President Trump no doubt would have agreed to just let this man, drop this man's appointment, and we pick another judge who is pro-life. But we assumed, just like the Heritage Foundation vetted this man, and just like the Heritage Foundation vetted Neil Gorsuch, and he seems to be voting pro-life whenever the opportunity arises, and he seems to be doing what we expected him to do. But Kavanaugh, right off the bat, is doing not what we expected him to do. In fact, it's very disappointing to see what he is doing. Now, this does not mean that he won't be a good judge, and does not mean that he won't be a pro-life ally on the bench, and it doesn't mean that he won't overthrow Roe v. Wade. But it doesn't look good with this first decision that he made related to abortion, and the decision not to take this case, not even to take it. You could say, well, he would vote to take it, but that doesn't mean that he would vote for the defunding of Planned Parenthood in these two states. But he didn't even take it. He didn't even want it before the bench. He didn't even want this opportunity to come up. And there are lots of people who have come up with all kinds of different reasons why he might not have wanted this to come up. He's a new judge. He doesn't want to be the tiebreaker. He doesn't want to cause controversy. But hey, I guess the question that I would have is, why are you worried about controversy, and why are you worried about any of that? You are on the bench. Some people have said, well, he didn't want to risk maybe being impeached, because there was some talk among the Democrats that as soon as they were in power in the House of Representatives, they would try to impeach the judge. And that's just empty threats, though. I mean, no, they're not going to impeach a sitting Supreme Court justice. No, that's not going to happen. So why would Brett Kavanaugh be worried about upsetting anyone? If he has pro-life convictions, he needs to just go ahead and be a judge. The other three conservative judges were not so much concerned about offending liberals. And also, when a liberal judge is appointed, there doesn't seem to be much concern about this liberal judge, when he first joins the court, of offending conservatives. What would Brett Kavanaugh have anything to do with being concerned about offending liberals? They wanted his neck. They wanted him dead. They wanted to grind him into the ground and ruin his career and everything else. So what Why would he want to appease them? No, he has every motivation to want to be showing gratitude to the conservatives that helped him make it to the bench. And he had an opportunity to do that with this court case that came up to him. We are not even asking that he cast a vote on the actual decision. He was just asked whether he would vote in favor to have the court case brought before the court, and he voted against it. So there's really no excuse for that. There's when we look at it cold and objectively, there is really no excuse for Brett Kavanaugh to not take that case. Now, yes, there are personal career sort of. Maybe Judge Roberts said, hey, we don't want this court to be politicized, and this would be a very highly political thing, so let's not do that at this time. But is that what the liberal side of the court says? Are they worried about politicizing the court? Are they concerned about not politicizing the court? No. So why is it that the conservative judges always have to be concerned about the image of the court, while the liberal judges seem to do whatever they want to do? And so it's a matter of different sides playing by different rules. The conservatives have to be polite, and they have to be accommodating to the liberals, and they have to worry about hurting people's feelings. But the liberal judges, they just seem to make decisions as whatever they want to do, and they don't seem to be all that concerned about hurting the conservatives' feelings or being disunified or whatever. So I think the conservative justices like Roberts, Chief Justice, he needs to stop trying to be this peacemaker and just get down to the work of the court. Just do his job. And the same way with Kavanaugh. Don't worry about the perception of the court about whether it's over-politicized or not. Just make the rulings according to the Constitution. That's all we ask for. And make the hard decisions. Make the tough decisions. Don't be the sensitive ones, because the liberal judges are not being sensitive. So you can't play by that rule of being polite and sensitive. Just make the rulings and trust that by doing your job the best way you can, you will be making the right decisions. And so let's pray, let's hope, let's encourage the new Justice Brett Kavanaugh to be faithful, be loyal to his own convictions and his judgments. And we just pray that one day Roe v. Wade will be reversed and we won't have to battle this over and over again. Well, I hope that's helped. We'll see you back next week on another edition of Christ and Culture. God bless.